dose of the vaccine, the rapid and effective response and the high titers of the antibodies are produced, and they remain there for some time. It may be for months, weeks, years, maybe in certain conditions, lifelong. So the acquired immunity, it may be acquired in two ways, actively and passively. So what we have discussed, that the body defense mechanism has innate, naturally inbuilt immunity. It can be of some type like the cellular, humoral, but adaptive and passive immunity, it can be active and passive. Now we come to the detail of the acquired immunity, because our vaccination topic is concerned with the acquired immunity. When the body's innate mechanism is insufficient, that is not sufficient for all types of infection. The organisms are so virulent that general health, good diet, these things are not sufficient for this type of the enemies. Like this police and rangers are not sufficient. Army has to call for certain things. This is the same thing. This is the body's army. So acquired immunity may be acquired in two ways, actively and passively. Active immunity means individuals make their own antibodies. These antibodies are produced in response to an infection. For example, natural infection like measles. When a child gets measles, he develops antibodies against measles, and after the first attack of the measles, the body remembers the measles antigen and antibodies are formed, and the second time if the measles virus attack the child, the body will stop that attack immediately. But if these antibodies are made after an infection, the body has to pay the cost. Like now the example of the COVID is very easy to give. If someone suffers from the COVID, the body makes antibodies against the COVID, obviously, but makes. But what is the cost of making antibodies like this? You suffer from the COVID, you may become very ill. So the reasonable method of getting active immunity, acquired immunity, is antibodies produced in response to a vaccine. It may be live, inactivated, toxide. Now we are talking about the RNA vaccines even. So the antibodies produced in response to a vaccine is active immunity. And passive immunity. Passive immunity has its own role. Individual gain antibodies from other who has produced them. Acquired immunity, active immunity, body makes its own antibodies. It takes some time. But in the passive immunity, individual gain antibodies from the another who has produced them. So it can be in the different form, like transfer of maternal antibodies through the placenta or in the breast milk. There are certain infections, so the vaccines, if we give to the mother, the antibodies are transferred to the baby. So the breast milk, we very much emphasize on giving breast milk to the baby, because breast milk contains antibodies against certain organisms. So the baby is protected against those infections for some time till we give the immunization to the child. So the passive immunity only lasts for weeks or months. It's not long lasting. In case of measles, mumps and rubella, it may last up to 1 year in infant. Hence the measles MMR is given after a year. We do not give measles to a 2-day-old child, 1-month-old child. We give measles at 9 months. We give MMR at 15 months. So one way of getting passive immunity is through the placenta or breast milk. But you have to be born for this if you want to get antibody through that. The other way of getting antibody is administration of antibodies. That is the immunoglobulins. They're collected from active immune humans or animals. For example, varicella zoster immunoglobulin, hepatitis B specific immunoglobulin. I give you an example. It will be easy for you to understand. For example, if a person, a young boy, suffered from the road accident, beside what type of wound, because it is a roadside injury, say there is soil, dirt, etc., what prophylaxis you will give against tetanus for this? So most of the doctors which are practicing in our hospital do not manage this case in the standard way, because they, I think, not have attended this lecture of vaccination at their MBBS time. Because if a person is not immunized, you start vaccination. You observe, most of the doctor, what do? They just give a tetanus toxoid injection to that person. It means nothing to him at this time, because first injection of tetanus toxoid, second after 1 month, third after 6 months, it will produce antibodies. While the organism, if unfortunately have entered through the wound, will start acting after 7 days when there will be no antibodies. So if you want to protect this child, this person against the tetanus, you have to give him, along with the vaccination, passive immunity. Passive immunity means preformed, prepared antibodies, that is immunoglobulin, tetanus specific immunoglobulin. Suppose another example, if you are working in a ward and you are not immunized against hepatitis B, should not be the case, but it's sometimes, and you get injury from a person while you handling that person, operating, cleaning, whatsoever, giving injection, you get a prick injury, or hepatitis B positive patient. If you give hepatitis B vaccine to this person, it will not help him at this moment, because the organism has entered. It will cause the disease in few days, few weeks. But if you start giving vaccine at this moment, it will take months. So you have to give passive immunity to this case also. But unfortunately, immunoglobulins are not available against all sort of the infections. If immunoglobulins are available, if I come across some person, if I'm not immunized like COVID, I will take COVID immunoglobulins. That will save me from the disease for the moment. But anti-immunoglobulins are not prepared against all the disease, but they are available for certain diseases. So again, now let's see what is the difference between the active and passive immunity. Active immunity, which is given by the vaccines in a planned manner, it is long-lasting, but it takes time to take effect. If you want to go to the ward, you are becoming a doctor, you should be immunized against hepatitis B before touching a patient. Full immunization, 0.16 dose. If we talk about the passive immunity gives immediate protection after administration of the preformed antibodies. But it only lasts for few weeks, and it is uncommonly used now. It is used where the person is not immunized and gets an infection, virulent type, where cannot wait vaccine to be effective. Same time the disease will be there, full-blown disease. So the principles of vaccination are based on the two key elements of adopted acquired immunity. That is the specificity and memory. And it is, in fact, vaccination is what? Vaccination is stimulation of an individual's own immune system to produce antibodies by administration of vaccine. Acquired immunity can be obtained by the active and the passive way. But when we use the term vaccination, it most of the time means by giving active vaccination, active immunization, stimulation of individual's own immune system to produce antibodies by administration of vaccine. Like healthcare workers and the elderly people all over the world are getting COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccine stimulates our own immune system. Antibodies are produced. We get the first dose. Most of the health workers, I also have taken both the doses. I've taken both the doses. So now those who have taken, they have produced certain level of antibodies, which we suppose are immunoprotective. Okay, we again repeat the same thing. We have discussed this, but now we will discuss about the in context of the vaccination. So if we give vaccination here, look at this chart, to a person like today, after 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, primary antibody response will occur. Memory cells will be formed, which will be of IgM type. So antibodies will be produced. And after the second dose of the injection, secondary antibody response will occur. Now the antibodies which are produced will be of high level, will be of much more high level. So the immunogenicity of the vaccine is its ability to stimulate the immune system of the body in such a way that it elicits an adaptive immune response, which will help him to protect against the future infection. We're talking about the immunogenicity because There are a lot of vaccine of the COVID, but how effective is vaccine? We are talking in context to this also. So now we have discussed about the basics of the immunization. We have discussed that in the human body, there is innate, inbuilt immunity, which try to tackle the antigen, enemy, which are causing harm to our body. But if that response is not enough, then the body's adaptive mechanism come into action, try to make antibodies. And that concept of adaptive immunity, which is tried by the body, is used by the scientists to make vaccine. This concept of vaccine is not taken from outside. It is taken from the body's immune mechanism, but it is molded, it is made safe. Getting the disease and getting immunity against the disease is a very costly thing. You may die of that disease, you may suffer the consequences and complication of that disease. But if you give vaccine, you will safely make antibodies, you will be you will be resistant to the infection in a safe way. So what is vaccine? Vaccine is a preparation of the causative organism of the agent of the disease. Same disease, same agent. It is specially treated for use in vaccination in order to induce an increased immunity. Again, I read, vaccine is a preparation of the causative agent of the disease, especially treated for use in the vaccination in order to induce or increase immunity. Measles vaccination contains some part of the measles virus. This COVID vaccine also has some part of the COVID virus. Whatever it is, we'll talk about this in detail. So there are different types of vaccine. If we divide them broadly, number one is a live attenuated vaccine. We'll discuss in detail because we are very much concerned about this. BCG, polio, measles, these are live attenuated vaccine. We are using it. Killed organism, killed vaccine is pertussis, toxide, tetanus toxide, diphtheria toxide. Antigenic vaccines are hepatitis B, HIV vaccine, conjugated vaccine, and pneumococcal. These are further modification antigenic and conjugated vaccine. They are polysaccharide vaccine, different type of vaccine, much and more. But at the students at your level, you should understand live attenuated vaccine, killed vaccine, and toxide at least. And antigenic conjugated, little concept about this. So we now talk a bit detail about the live or the attenuated vaccine. Live vaccines are attenuated. What is means by attenuation? These live vaccines contain live but weakened organism. In vaccine of BCG, polio, and measles, the live organism are there. They can stimulate the immune response by causing a mild infection with a weakened organism. The organism weakened. In fact, the virulence is destroyed, only its antigenicity is maintained. They are live, but they have very low pathogenic potential, almost no pathogenic potential. Examples we have discussed: measles, mumps, rubella, varicella vaccine, polio vaccine, yellow fever vaccine. These live attenuated vaccines, they have advantage that their response is very optimal, close to the naturally acquired immune response. And generally, the injection of a small antigenic load is sufficient to give long-term protection. Very good vaccines are live vaccine, but they have certain drawbacks. Although very less chances, but they are drawbacks. They can induce a subclinical or mild form of the disease, and they should not be given to immunosuppressed or to the pregnant women. These are the contraindications of live vaccine. Now, after the live vaccine, we move to the other type of the vaccine, that is the killed or inactivated vaccine. It means the organism is non-life, is non-living, and antigenic portion of the organism obtained by the culture extraction, like pneumococcal, polysaccharide vaccine, or genetic recombination, like hepatitis B vaccine. So, antigenic properties are maintained. Body take that injection of that vaccine as an antigen, but they are unable to multiply in the body. For example, influenza vaccine. So the killed vaccine contained the killed organism, and they cannot cause the disease. So They have advantages, they are unable to cause the disease. There is no chance that the disease will be caused. At the moment, COVID vaccine or whatever type is used all over the world is not live vaccine at all. So there is no chance that anybody can get infection by a vaccine. With the live vaccine, there are very minimal chances, but there are chances. But with the killed vaccine, there is no chance. But it has drawbacks. It is less immunogenic. You need to couple them with adjuvants or the carrier protein. Something has to be added, and need for more than one injection or the boosters. Mechanism is there in producing the response of the body, but not as efficient mechanism as with the live vaccine. Third category of the vaccine is the toxide. Toxide is an antigen here. So the toxin, certain diseases act by producing toxin, like the tetanus and the diphtheria. It is the toxin produced by this organism which destroys certain parts of our body, go and bind there, produce the membrane, destruction, necrosis of the mucosa in the diphtheria. While the transmission is stopped, the person is getting fits, seizure, and rigidity in the tetanus. So their toxin is modified and made harmless. Toxin is converted into toxide, and the toxide is harmless. It cannot cause harm to the body, but antigenicity is maintained. So the example of toxide vaccine, as we discussed, are the diphtheria and the tetanus. Now, we come to a very important thing. I again give the example of the COVID vaccine. Everybody is talking about Sinopharm vaccine is effective, or the other vaccine, AstraZeneca, is effective, Pfizer vaccine is effective, Moderna vaccine is effective. And what is the way of measuring response of vaccines? It's not just you blindly give an injection and say, oh, I'm vaccinated. For the scientists, it is difficult to say like that. They have to do certain things about that. So if we like to do determining how good vaccine is that, we have to see three things. Immunogenicity, first thing, that is capacity of an antigen to elicit an immune response. In the laboratories, when a vaccine is made, the first thing is that the vaccine should be immunogenic. If you're prepared, you're taking a part of the virus and inject into an animal experiment animal, you measure whether it is immunogenic or not. Number one, that is one, it produces certain response. Second thing is efficacy. The capacity of a vaccine to provide protection from disease under controlled conditions such as randomized controlled trial. Efficacy is that, we again give the example of COVID vaccine because everybody is involved in that. COVID vaccine are prepared in very hurry. This is not the way to produce vaccine. It takes years and years, but now it has taken months only because the humanity was in danger. So many deaths have occurred. The world has stopped working normal routines. The economy is also been destroyed. So there is rationale for this hurry. But first of all, they check the immunogenicity by the different mechanism. That's why so many vaccines are there. Second thing was the efficacy. Clinical trials were conducted. No vaccine came into the market without clinical trial. So what vaccines were effective? Their efficacy, as we are discussing, they were controlled, they were passed by the WHO. So third thing is the clinical effectiveness. That is the capacity of vaccination to provide protection from disease in the general population. This thing is not done with the COVID vaccine because we are in hurry, we are in danger, there is urgency. But other vaccines like polio vaccines, measles vaccine, they came to the general use recommended by WHO after these all three conditions. That is a clinical effectiveness, that is a capacity of vaccination to provide protection from the disease in the general population. When you are using the vaccine in certain area, certain country, the disease incidence is decreased. Like polio vaccine, there were lakhs of cases of polio in the world. There are thousands of deaths. But when we started using polio vaccine, it was so effective that the disease came into control. Like a smallpox vaccine, eradicated the smallpox from the world. The vaccine was so good. So these three conditions are necessary for a vaccine determining how good a vaccine is. So immunogenicity we have discussed. It is the capacity of antigen to elicit an immune response. Second thing is seroconversion. When we give vaccine, the development of detectable specific antibodies in the serum as a result of infection or immunization. For example, a subject moves from a situation in which no antibodies are detectable into one in which antibodies are detectable. So when we give vaccine to a person, there is seroconversion. This is a condition for a vaccine to be effective. Second thing is just seroconversion is not sufficient. The level of the antibodies should be at such level that it should be able to prevent the disease. So this is called the seroprotection level. The presence of specific antibodies in the serum, at least at a level that is known to protect against the disease in question. For example, hepatitis A and B, this level of antibodies are required. It is not just giving a vaccine and you think you are safe. There's so many other things. Seroprotection, the antibodies in your body should be above the recommended seroprotection level. So now we discuss a very important thing with the general population not know. That is the factors that can influence the immune response to vaccination. Number one, vaccine, age, newborn babies and elderly. These are two extremes of life where the body immune mechanism is weak. They're more fragile. So in the newborns, the presence of maternal antibodies can inhibit the immune process of vaccination. And there is non-response to T-independent antigens. So if we give vaccine to the newborn, we give BCG at birth, polio drops at birth, then at 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, 9 months. Why don't we give at 6 weeks all the vaccine? Because the body does not produce the response if we give so early, and maternal antibodies are there, they interfere with the response. Elderly people, there is weakened immune system. If you give the same vaccine to a child of 2-3 years or adolescent and same vaccine to elderly, it is a response of the body to a vaccine. Antibodies are produced by the body. So if the body's immune response is weak, the antibodies made are not at that level. Okay? Age is an important factor. Second factor is immunodeficiency. If there is relative non-response to vaccination for killed vaccine or antigen infections, especially for polysaccharide vaccine, and there are contraindications of live vaccine. So immunodeficiency is a condition which affects the response to vaccine. If we give vaccine to immunodeficient person, the person may not make antibodies up to that level, number one. Number two, the weakened live vaccine may produce disease in that person. It is a danger. Vaccine, more characteristics are the genetic factors. According to individual genetic makeup, the immune response to the same antigen can be low and high. In certain parts of the world, the disease is eradicated easily because of their genetic factors. But same response is not in all the persons. Another important factor is a nutritional state. Malnutrition can be responsible for a relative deficiency of cellular immunity, for example, BCG in some developing countries. So the response may not be good in a malnourished child. Similarly, if there is underlying illness, the chronic illness may result in a different immune response. But all this does not mean that we will not give vaccine to these persons. This is just a scientific discussion that the immune response, because its own response to the body may be weak in a malnourished person, may be weak in a sick person. This is just for the discussion because these are the people who need more protection. These are the first to be given vaccine because they are in more danger than a healthy person. Now coming to the factors that can influence the response to vaccine, it's the vaccine itself. Dose and administration route, that is the most important. Vaccine should be administered according to the manufacturer's instruction. Vaccine have been studied by specific administration route at a specific dose. For example, hepatitis B vaccine. It is recommended that it should be given either in the anterolateral thigh or in the deltoid of the arm. It cannot be given in the buttocks, in the hips. If it is given in the hips, the manufacturer recommends it should be taken as a missed dose. It should not be counted as a vaccine given. So Vaccine should be administered according to manufacturer's instructions. The dose and the route should be according to what is being studied. Then most important thing is the storage condition, that is the cold chain. Storage must be in line with the license of the vaccinee. For most of the vaccines, this is between 2 to 8 degrees centigrade because of the risk of loss of potency is higher low temperature. And expired vaccines are also a danger. So storage condition is a very important thing. If you are giving vaccine without keeping it at proper temperature, it will not produce that level of the immunogenicity into your body. There is another factor that a simultaneous administration of immunoglobulin. In some cases, the vaccine efficacy may be reduced by the injected antibodies if you are giving more thing. But this is not the case all the time. Certain vaccines combinations have been studied and are being given. So we come to another important concept. So what we have discussed, the innate immunity, adaptive or acquired immunity, active and passive immunity, acquired immunity of two types. The third type of immunity, beside active and passive, is the herd immunity. What is herd immunity? Everybody is talking that the COVID will be under control once the herd immunity is produced in certain country or population. What is herd immunity? Herd immunity occurs when the proportion of people immune to an infection is sufficiently high so that the transmission of infection to susceptible individual is greatly reduced. In that case, the outbreaks of disease do not occur. Herd immunity helps to protect those who are susceptible and cannot be immunized for whatever reason, for example, immunocompromised, pregnant, etc. So if a significant portion of our population is immunized against a disease, the transmission to those who are not immunized will also be decreased. This is called the herd immunity. Because there are certain fraction of people who may refuse vaccination or who may not vaccination for the medical reasons. Like in the COVID vaccine, there are certain types of people who cannot give vaccine, but they are at risk. So if me and you are immunized, will not be transmitting the disease to those people. This is herd immunity. Herd immunity is the immunity of a community against a disease, which is by virtue of the people, most of the people who are immunized, so the transmission level is decreased. This is very important, and this is being practiced on the other diseases, measles, polio, and other things. So the world is waiting now the herd immunity against the COVID, but that is not easy. It is a difficult task. So now we come, after discussing these basic concepts of vaccination, we come to our main target, that is the expanded program of immunization. Dear students, in Pakistan, we are losing around 4 lakh children every year just because we are not vaccinating them. The vaccine is available, the children are available, we are here, but the children are dying just because they are not getting vaccine. So EPI program is the expanded program of immunization. In 1974, WHO launched EPI to address the inequities in the global vaccine coverage. As you see in the COVID, the vaccine is 8,000, 10,000 rupees. Who will give the vaccine? Everybody cannot give the vaccine. So WHO felt this in 1974 and launched this program. In 1977, the World Health Assembly proposed the goal of universal childhood immunization against the 6 antigen. At that time, it was 6 antigen. Now it is increased. It started originally with the TB, polio, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, and measles, and subsequently it increased. So the EPI program is the exclusive immunization provided in Pakistan. Now vaccines against 10 diseases are available. It started with the 6, now it is 10 diseases. Provides 97% of the immunization service in Pakistan, while the private sector has only 3% coverage. More than 6,000 fixed centers of EPR in Pakistan, and more than 1 million outreach and mobile vaccination sessions are conducted each year. There are more than 10,000 vaccinators, 6,000 lady health workers, and lakhs of lady health workers also, 6,000 lady health visitors. There are 4 components of EPI. Number 1 is the routine immunization. It means the immunization of children from 0 to 23 months with immunization of with 9 to 10 EPI antigens. It is written 9, it is now 10. And pregnant ladies are also given the tetanus toxoid in the EPI program. Number two is the supplementation. Beside the routine immunization, that is not sufficient. The second component of EPI is supplemental immunization activities. That is, the routine immunization does not ensure 100% coverage of the mobile population. There are so many types of people who are moving all the time here and there. There are missed area, there are refusals. So the special immunization activities are scheduled to ensure the coverage of this population, like polio days. From 29 March, National Immunization Polio Days will be started. All of the Pakistan children will be given the polio drops. Similar things have been happening again and again, the typhoid vaccine and the measles vaccine. It is called the SIA, Special Immunization Activity. And the third thing is the disease surveillance. You cannot manage anything if you don't know what is the problem. So disease surveillance is to detect every case of the target disease, the suspected cases of vaccine preventable diseases, which are reported to health facilities, to a district health office for immediate launching of the control measures. And fourth component is the mopping up. It is related to disease surveillance. That is the special campaigns 5 to 8 kilometers around the infected locality to localize the disease and stop transmission. I explain this as practitioner. When I see the patient, if a patient of the measles come to me, I will ask his name, father's name, address, complete address, cell number, and beside treating the patient on what it needs, I will send this information to the district health officer. District health officer will look at this information and immediately send a team to the dead child's house and see the immunization status of the other children of the house and the surrounding area. If it is a village, the whole village or the whole dead street, etc., and will immunize all the children of that area if they are not immunized against that disease. This is called the mopping up. It is secondary to disease surveillance. So the component of the EPI are routine immunization, supplemental immunization activities, disease surveillance, and mopping up. Now we come to the EPI landmarks in Pakistan. In Pakistan, EPI started in 1978 with the 6 diseases. In 2002, it was a revolutionary year. Hepatitis B, a costly vaccine, was added. In 2009, Haemophilus influenza vaccine, a very good vaccine, and the second dose of measles was added. In 2012, pneumococcal vaccine, which is a very extremely costly vaccine, was added. In 2015 and 16, injectable polio was added, that is the IPV. 2017 and 18, rotavirus was added. And January 2020, conjugate typhoid vaccine is added in the EPI program of Sindh province at the moment. Now it will be including in the Punjab and the other parts of Pakistan in very near future. It was just delayed because of COVID, but in the Sindh, every child is getting the typhoid vaccine also. So our immunization schedule is that we do not pass any student if a student do not tell us exactly what is the EPI schedule. So students, remember, if you want to pass the exam beside other things, you should be knowing every word of this EPI vaccine schedule. At birth, BCG and OPV is given. At 6 weeks, first dose of the pentavalent vaccine, OPV vaccine, and first pneumococcal vaccine and rotavirus vaccine is given. So at 6 weeks, the child is given 2 injections. On the one side of the thigh, pentavalent, which contains 5 vaccines. Bottom for those 5 vaccine, pneumococcal vaccine. It is diphtheria, not pneumococcal, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, hepatitis B, and Hib. And the other thigh giving the PCV pneumococcal vaccine. By orally, polio drops is given, and the Rotarix vaccine is also given orally. The same thing is again repeated at 10 weeks. All this. At 14 weeks, 3rd dose of penta and 3rd dose of pneumococcal vaccine is given. OPV drops are given. Now the rota is not given, and injectable polio vaccine, a 3rd injection is given. At 9 months, first dose of measles is given along with the typhoid conjugate vaccine in the province of Sindh and soon in all Pakistan. At 15 months, 2nd dose of the measles is given. So this is our very brief. It's not so big. At birth, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, then 9 months and 15 months. These are the routes. BCG is given at intradermal on the right deltoid. OPV vaccine is given 2 drops orally. Pentavalent vaccine is 0.5 ml. It is given intramuscular. It is given at thigh and the anterolateral junction of the upper 1/3 and lower 2/3. Pneumococcal vaccine is given on the other thigh, anterolateral position. It is intramuscular rotavirus vaccine, that is rotavirus vaccine is 1.5 ml in a pre-filled syringe. It is given orally. And IPV is injectable vaccine. It is given intramuscularly on anterior lateral thigh. Measles vaccine, the dose is 0.5 ml. It is given subcutaneous on the left deltoid. Typhoid conjugate vaccine is given 0.5 ml on the right anterior lateral thigh intramuscularly. These are the routes. The lecture will be available to you on the DAO website. So you will be remembering all this. It is also given very beautifully in your textbook. That is the textbook of community medicine. Ilyas and Ansari, the famous book. You should have that book. So these are the routine immunization vaccine schedule. Suppose a child come to you, has not given any vaccine. 10 months, 14 months old, a child comes to my clinic and say, the parents have not given any vaccine. What you will do? I will check the BCG scar, whether the BCG scar is not. When a BCG vaccine is given, there is a scar. If there is no BCG scar, for that child who has not received any vaccine at 10 months of age, I will give him BCG vaccine. One. Number two, I will give him this pentavalent vaccine on one thigh, other thigh. I will give him pneumococcal vaccine. I will give him nasal vaccine on the deltoid region, left side, and at the same time, I will give him poliotrops and will call him for the next dose. So, if any child under 2 years of age come to our clinic, our hospital, if not adequately immunized, we will screen the child and we will start vaccination immediately at that time. Beside this, Tesnatoxide is a vaccine. It is a part of the EPI. It is given to the women of the childbearing age, that is the 15 to 45 years of age. There are 5 doses of Tesnatoxide, 0.5 ml intramuscular in the deltoid region. First vaccine is given at first contact, second at after 1 year, one month, that is, and third is given after 6 months. And fourth is given after first year or after the next pregnancy, in the next pregnancy, and fifth is given as after 1 year or the next pregnancy. So for all of you, even male and female should get the tetanus toxoid vaccine. Especially, it is important for the female is that the child born to the females will be protected against the tetanus till the tetanus vaccine is given to that child. So every female of the child being age should get this vaccine. It will protect you and in the future in the pregnancy and for the child also. There is an important thing, vaccine while monitored. Our people are very much doubt. We are not doubtful in anything. When we eat burger, we are not concerned whether it is fresh or whatever. But for vaccine, everybody is talking, it is affected, it is expired or whatever. All the EPI vaccine contain a vaccine while monitored. What is vaccine while monitored? This is a symbol on every vaccine of EPI. The vaccine while monitored is a circle with a small square inside it. It is printed on the product label or attached to the cap of the vaccine vial or the tube or to the neck of the ampule. The importance of this is that this vaccine while monitored is so sensitive as a vaccine. If this vaccine while monitored is damaged, what is damaged I tell you, then the vaccine also be damaged. It will be of no use. Both expire in the same way. So look at this chart. Vaccine while monitored, there is a round and a square inside. The color of the square is light, while the circle has dark color. When vaccine while monitored start, color of the square is never snow white. It always a bluish gray inside. From then on until the temperature or the duration of the heat reaches a level known to degrade the vaccine, the color of the square starts changing. If the color of this square is same as the color of this circle in this, then this is a discard point and this is also a discard point. It means the vaccine has become ineffective and should not use this vaccine. So we can check the potency of every vaccine just by looking at the vaccine while monitored. So we should have no question about the vaccine efficacy. If the vaccine while monitored is okay, the vaccine is okay. This is sort of the reassurance when you will come to the clinics, to the PEDS. There is an excellent EPI room in our PEDS, our department, both at Koja and this, and you should check the vaccine while monitored. So now coming to the conclusions and the role of the healthcare provider. Every year, 4 lakh children are dying in Pakistan. What is the role of healthcare provider? ask vaccination status of every child and mother seen at the facility. Whatever reason the child come with the diarrhea, vomiting, fever, pneumonia, ask what is the vaccination status and provide guidance for immunization. Tell them, I'm treating this disease, but your child needs attention for that also. Establish vaccination facility at your clinic and center and any hospital where you're working. Try to increase the network of this EPI. Elevate any misconception regarding immunization. Every gathering, wedding, whatever, salgira, birthday, whatever, talk about the vaccine. People will talking when misconception, elevate their misconception. Support and participate in the activity related to immunization at the public forum, print and electronic media, and support health authorities in surveillance and vaccination promotion activities. These are the duties of a doctor, of a consultant, of a medical student, of the nursing staff. Everyone is a healthcare provider. So I stop my lecture here. I request Saqib to show you a very beautiful video of the API. Then we'll take few questions also. Okay, I stop sharing my screen. And Saqib, you please start the video. Saqib? Saqib?
Yes, sir, starting.
Yes, start. अभी शो नहीं हुई है, शो करें. So student, while waiting for the video to start, you can type your question in the chat box and we'll be discussing. We have 5-10 minutes also. In the meantime, while Saqib is starting the video, I will like to answer a very beautiful question asked by Muiz Tariq. I'm very glad we have so nice, brilliant students. So
routine immunization schedule. Under the expanded program on immunization, there are vaccines recommended by the government of Pakistan for children to prevent against 10 deadly vaccine-preventable diseases, which are tuberculosis, polio, diphtheria, pneumonia, whooping cough, hepatitis B, meningitis, diarrhea, tetanus and measles. These free vaccines are administered to children from birth till the age of 15 months in 6 visits. First visit is scheduled at the time of baby's birth. On this visit, the child is administered BCG vaccine under the skin in the right upper arm for protection against tuberculosis. OPV0 vaccine is given orally to protect against polio, and Hep B vaccine is administered in the left thigh to protect against hepatitis B. Second visit is scheduled when the baby is 6 weeks old. On this visit the baby will receive OPV1 vaccine orally, first dose of rotavirus 1 vaccine which is given orally for protection against diarrhea, first dose of pneumococcal 1 vaccine which is administered intramuscularly in the left thigh for protection against pneumonia and meningitis, along with first dose of pentavalent 1 vaccine which is administered intramuscularly in right thigh for protection against tetanus, diphtheria, pertussis, hepatitis B and Haemophilus influenza. Third visit is scheduled when the baby is 10 weeks old. On this visit, second dose of OPV2 is given orally along with the second dose of rotavirus 2 vaccine, second dose of pneumococcal 2 which is administered intramuscularly in left thigh and second dose of pentavalent 2 which is administered intramuscularly in right thigh. Fourth visit is scheduled when the baby is 14 weeks old. On this visit, third dose of OPV3 is given orally along with first dose of IPV that is injectable polio vaccine given intramuscularly in the left thigh for protection against polio. Third dose of pneumococcal 3 which is administered intramuscularly in left thigh and pentavalent 3 vaccine which are administered intramuscularly in the right thigh. fifth visit is scheduled when the baby is 9 months old. On this visit, first dose of measles 1 vaccine is administered intramuscularly in left arm for protection against measles. Sixth visit is scheduled when the baby is 15 months old. On this visit second dose of measles 2 vaccine is administered intramuscularly in left arm for protection against measles. The expanded program on immunization Pakistan provides free vaccines for children to protect them from 10 deadly vaccine-preventable diseases. To administer these free vaccines, API has developed an immunization schedule for children from birth till 15 months of age, which includes 6 visits to a public health facility.
Thank you. Thank you, Saqib. Now we come to the question, very important question from the just hold on. What is the criteria for a disease to come in EPI? Very good question. For a disease to be included in an EPI is not an easy task. First of all, they see what is the incidence of disease, how much is the mortality and morbidity related to that disease. Then third thing they see, what is the available vaccine and how effective that vaccine is and what is the cost of the vaccine. So the cost effectiveness is also thing. So those diseases are included which are of public health importance, which are killing, we are making our children sick, more sick. Like in flu vaccine is not included, but the measles vaccine is included because it's a killer disease, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus. So vaccine, the disease must be present in the community. Number one, in that place. Number two, there should be an effective vaccine and there should be benefit if we get free from the disease. That are the criteria used for including the new disease. Similarly, we have make our authorities to include the typhoid vaccine in the EPI program because there was an emergence of an XDR typhoid, extremely resistant typhoid, and the cost of the treatment was in the lakhs for a single child. It was impossible to manage so large number of the typhoid cases. So the typhoid is now included in that. The schedule of typhoid is given at 9 months of the age. When a child comes to us with the measles vaccine, measles 1, he is also given the typhoid vaccine. It is not included in the video because this is a national video and the typhoid conjugate vaccine is started only in the Sindh and now it will be started in the other parts of Pakistan in the next few months. Then it will be incorporated into the video. The other question is, can you repeat the schedule of immunization? I think it has been very good repeated in that. The question, there is an appreciation from the lecture from whatever it is, name is not written. Now another name is not given. Assalamu alaikum sir, are there any vaccine that is delivered different doses of males and females and what all vaccine is recommended to take in Pakistan? Dear student, the vaccines which are included in the EPI program should be delivered to every child of the Pakistan. That is one thing. Then there are other vaccines also which are not included in the vaccine program, but they are available and should be given to the children who can afford it at least. Instead of buying a shoe and a toy and a new dress, give that vaccine to your child. That is a gift. That is a gift to child. And if you start using this vaccine, will put pressure on the health authorities to bring this vaccine EPI program. The hepatitis A vaccine is there, MMR vaccine is there, the boosters of DPT, there are other vaccines also. And your question about male and female is about actually there is a vaccine which is called the Cervarix, that is the human papilloma virus vaccine, HPV vaccine. Human papilloma virus infects the genital tracts of the mainly females, and is one of the causes of the cancer of the cervix. So there is a vaccine available with the name of the Cervarix, and it is to be given to the females after the age of 9-10 years and should be preferably given before the start of the sexual age, that is 14-15. It can be given later on, but should be given this. This vaccine is available, but it is not popular vaccine at the moment. And our Society of Gynae is trying to bring this vaccine to the national program, and maybe in some time when the funds will be available, it will be included in that, hopefully. And why is not tetanus vaccine part of EPI? Dear student, tetanus is a very, very part of the EPI. The mother is given, the female is given 5 doses of the tetanus toxoid, number 1. Number 2, when a child is born, this pentavalent vaccine, DPT, hepatitis 1B, and Hib. 5 vaccine in pentavalent, and tetanus is one of these vaccines. So the tetanus vaccine is given as pentavalent 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and 14 weeks. So tetanus is given importance because tetanus not is a disease which we like to see in any child. Sir, can COVID-19 vaccine be added in the EPI program in the near future? Dear student, this EPI program is for the children, expanded program of immunization, while the government is making now adult vaccine center for the adults. So far, that as the disease is not much and do not producing so much complication in the children, so there are no trials below 18 years. Now they have started certain vaccine at 12 years of age. So the COVID vaccine is recommended at the moment to the persons above 18 years of age. It is not to be given to children at the moment. But the later, if the disease is there, the vaccine is developed, obviously we will put the pressurize health authorities to keep it, bring it into the EPI. And you said that we should vaccinate the child coming without being vaccinated less than 2 years. So how, while it requires time gap to? Actually, ideally, there should be a difference of 1 month between the 2 sessions of vaccine. That is a principle. It is a long discussion, but I mention here. So if we give 2-3 vaccine to child at one day, we'll ask him to come after 1 month, and then we'll give the other vaccine. Because if like pentavalent and pneumococcal, there are 3 doses. Measles, there should be gap of 3 months between the 2 doses of measles if the child is over age, like more than 15 months. But the other vaccines like polio, pentavalent, these vaccines can be given after a gap of 1 month. The rotavirus vaccine is given to children less than 6 months of age. If the child has passed the age of 6 months and come to us and has not taken the rotavirus, we will not give the rotavirus vaccine because it is not declared safe in the ages later than 6 months. Okay. Since your daughter got a typhoid vaccine last year, was it part of the EPI program? Thank you very much. My daughter got typhoid vaccine symbolically because everybody is talking against the vaccine. So I gave vaccine to my child as first child to be vaccinated in Pakistan just to show my confidence on the vaccine. It was not part of the EPI program at that time. The government has seen launch a special campaign, talking about the SIS second component of the EPI, to launch a special campaign in the province of Sindh where more than 1 crore children, 10 million children were immunized. Especially the target was from the 9 months to 15 years of age. After vaccinating this whole cohort of 9 to 15 years of age, the EPI, including the EPI, now every child is getting this vaccine at 9 months of the age. So everybody who's now 1 year, 2 years of age has taken this vaccine as a part of the EPI, and the children who are above this age were given this vaccine in a special campaign. Any more question? Achha, so for the vaccine, the EPI programs, do different manufacturers matter, like there are different manufacturers for the COVID vaccine? Actually, the EPI is a very large program. WHO gives a criteria which is called the pre-qualified WHO vaccine. WHO examines the vaccine, so these vaccines are taken in a large scale all over the world. So special attention is given to minimum side effect, the safety and the things. Then after that, that vaccine is passed to be used in the EPI. COVID is a different situation. The people are dying day and night. There are daily 9,000, 6,000, 9,000 deaths. The whole world, the economy is stopped. So there is a little bit hurry. So the vaccines are giving clearance in a hurry. But in the EPI program, the vaccines are time tested. They have been tested in every way. After that, they are allowed to be used in the EPI program. What is your prediction as being in the public health expert that when shall we cross the threshold of the herd immunity in Pakistan? Very tricky and difficult question. No one knows. The extent and the width of disease is not much as in the other countries due to the factors which we not know. And secondly, our vaccine strategy is not so good because we are not spending much money on this vaccine. So at the most, what is the news that only 20 million people will be immunized in 1 year time. So we need more than attention. Probably government will put more resources and will give vaccination to the larger number of the population. Then we will come in the phase of the herd immunity, but it is not in the near future possible. If the child has not been vaccinated 2 years, what we should do? there is a way of vaccinating a child up to 5 years of age, and the EPI program, when it comes to the vaccinator, he cannot decide, but there is a pediatrician sitting in every hospital. The pediatrician will give him the vaccine which are safe. Every vaccine is not safe to be given every age. So the child is above 2 years of age, measles can be given, polio can be given, and the pentavalent vaccine is difficult in some cases to be given, but there is a way of protecting your child above 5 years of age, even under 2 and 5 years and above 5 years. There is a mechanism, and we do that in our practice. Thank you. I think there are no more questions and the time is over. Thank you very much, students. I hope you have learned at least something about the vaccination. Thank you very much and goodbye. Allah Hafiz.